Welcome back to the Data for Good podcast, and what an episode we have in store for you today. We are joined by Camila Gutiérrez López, who is the analytics lead at Berlin's successful gaming app JustPlay. We will be discussing the journey of a data startup. She was employee number one in the data team. She set the foundations, she set up the right tools, and is now growing a team to really uncover the benefits and the power of data. Enjoy. Camila, welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Data for Good podcast. Today, we're here to talk about the evolution of a data team in a startup. Why is that so relevant today, and why are we talking with you about it?
Well, thank you so much, Matt. So I've been working in a startup for the past 3.5 years now, and when I was hired back in 2020, we essentially didn't have any data team. It was just like the co-founders, some freelancers, and I was the first hire for this company. And I was just essentially like the data unicorn. So I was just doing all kinds of analysis for the marketing and monetization. And I was also like, back in the day, we were just doing a lot of spreadsheets and like manually uploading data into spreadsheets, and just everything was extremely rudimentary.
Mm-hmm.
And as the company has grown and like the years have gone by, the team has grown as well, and like the company has we've realized like there was a need for a more structured data team, and like we realized like very quickly that we needed to update the way that we were working with data. And that's why we started like generating so much more data. We started like having a lot more complexity in our product, and so we needed to update the way that we handle data as well.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the trigger was for the business to introduce you? When did they realize, right, we need to take this seriously?
Okay, so I think the trigger for like adding me was the need, like necessarily like the need of having someone who was in the data most of the time, and who was looking at these numbers and trying to figure out a little bit more, okay, like how are we gonna optimize these campaigns? How are we going to make sure that we are actually getting the ROAS that we need? And like, how are we making sure that we have the best monetization set up for ad revenue? So all of these issues started coming up, but there wasn't someone in the team who could be doing this more on a more full-time basis, essentially.
So you came into the business. Where did you start? There'll be companies out there, founders or early stage companies, which will be considering their first data hire. What was it like for you stepping into that greenfield environment?
So I have to say it was both like very freeing, but it was also quite daunting at the start, because there really wasn't much, right? So it was really exciting to be able to try out a ton of different things, to really learn about the environment and the company and like how ad revenue worked. But at the same time, it was really it was truly scary, in a sense that we just didn't know if what we're doing is the correct thing or not. And it, I guess the data has proven itself, and like we're growing in the right directions. But it was honestly also something that was coming up a lot in the early days, was that we were all doing all kinds of things. So I was not only doing the data analysis, but I was also essentially helping one of the co-founders do the user acquisition management. I was helping one of the co-founders do the monetization itself. So I think that was what gave me a lot of the early tools to really understand what the data was about, because I was not only just looking at numbers, but I was actually using them to make decisions on the day-to-day, because essentially those two teams were like two people, essentially, one of the co-founders and myself. And we just really had to be really strategic and like really prioritize how we wanted to manage everything, because it started getting bigger and bigger, and we just didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to every single thing.
Yeah, and steep learning curve, it sounds.
Extremely steep, yeah.
If you could go back and maybe tell yourself a lesson, maybe someone who's just about to go through that journey, what would you tell yourself back then?
What would I tell myself back then? I think there's actually several things. I would tell myself to be a little bit more confident. Like, you are doing things correctly, and like you're learning, and like don't be afraid to experiment a little bit more, and like don't be afraid to advocate for experimentation a little bit more. And I think because in those early days I was so hesitant to change the way things were, and like I was very nervous about making any mistakes. So it really, I feel like it's that kind of mindset like really hinders you when you want to grow a user acquisition experience, or like when you want to grow a monetization thing. You have to be willing to make mistakes, and you have to be willing to perhaps maybe you'll lose some money in the meantime, right? Like, you're gonna make mistakes, definitely. But kind of like getting over yourself and just, okay, we did this, it didn't work, okay, we learned it, now we won't do it the next time. I think that is the main mindset that I would advocate for people to have when they're starting out.
Keep going, keep pushing
through.
Keep
going. Yeah, exactly. Just keep pushing.
Nice. So you've laid the foundations, you're starting to put reports together. Maybe it could take up to a week to put one report together. What kind of happens next?
So what happens next is that we quickly realize that this is not going to work out in the long term. Like, this is not sustainable. And we, at some point in like early 2021, the company hired a lead backend engineer. And one of the first things he did, which was really cool, was introduce Chart.io. So he connected the backend directly into this BI tool, and everything just got so much easier to make reports. Like, everything was just, oh wow, we don't have to be like going back and forth and like doing this kind of work, all of this really manual, really boring work. So that like really unlocked a lot of things for us.
Nice.
And it was really like, and I think like the main and like the key thing about this was that Chart.io was a super simple tool. Like, it was just SQL. It was just very simple visualizations. It's just essentially a layer between your backend and the final user, but it's not doing anything else. And it gave us that freedom to explore and to make analyses a little bit faster and like just a little bit more complex and structured, because we didn't have to sort of like copy paste from different sources.
Yeah, a taster of potential and what was possible.
Yes, exactly.
And having the back-end engineer working with the data, how are they with that?
So that was also like a really great improvement for us, because there was finally someone who could provide certain parts of the data that were really valuable and like provide them really fast. And so working with him really unlocked as well like a lot of the things that we could be doing. And like I also feel like I gained a lot more understanding once he joined about how the backend worked and like how the application worked in the background. Because when you're on the business side of things, you're not necessarily very in the weeds of how the app is really working. But with him, like what I tried to do as well in those first early days was just like pester him with questions and just be like, why does this happen? What is this? Like, what is that? Like, can you please explain to me how this gets in there? And then that really gave me also the kind of like the knowledge to be a lot more independent in making my own reports. And that was like because also, again, it was such a small team, it was really easy to just be in there and like asking all of these questions and just interacting with each other was really easy. And it gave me a lot of insight moving forward.
And Chart.io wasn't around too long. You migrated across.
We had to, yes. It was really sad because we started using it, and I think it was like around 3 months. And at the 3 months, we got the notification like, hey, we got bought by Atlassian, I think. There's not going to be any Chart.io anymore. And we had to go on this mad scramble of, okay, like, what are we going to do now? Like, we don't want to go back to these horrible spreadsheets. What do we do? So the backend engineer and myself, we sat down, we discussed, okay, like, what is it that we're looking for? Something comparable. And again, we're still like 5-6 people at this point. So Metabase, we came like after a lot of researching through a lot of different places, just like random like internet searches as well. We said, okay, like Metabase seems to be doing the trick. We don't need to host it even. Like we can just have it on the cloud. They can do everything. And it really supplied what Chart.io was doing as well for us. So Metabase really was a really good tool for us as well to just kind of like keep that ball rolling.
Yeah, popular tool.
It is a very popular tool. And I think like one of the great things about Metabase is that there's such a big community around it as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that you can answer. Like it's very simple. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to like get into. So it really helped us like start keeping more and more reports and like start like playing around with the data that we were already collecting, but that we weren't using that much up to that point.
SQL became king.
And SQL, I feel like SQL has been king for a really long time for us. And SQL really, again, at the risk of repeating myself, but like it really unlocked a lot of things. And like it really unlocked a lot of reports. And of course, it comes with certain downsides as well, because you kind of do everything you want to do with SQL, but it really gave us a really nice, simple tool to continue making these reports and to continue making, like having a more structured approach to how we analyze data.
And the company became a bit of a success story. They continued to grow and tell me, maybe you began to outgrow Metabase and the capabilities it has.
We did. So like, let's fast forward a couple of years, and now the company is around 30 people or more, and we have way more people creating reports, and we have way more people using and looking at reports. And because we also in this process, we launched the app in a lot of new countries, and this became an issue really fast that we had to replicate a lot of reports because we had MySQL instances in different geos. So it was something that we had to replicate. So for a report that we did in one geo, we had to replicate it for the other ones. So we ended up with 5-6 different versions of the same report that we had to maintain. This was one of like the earliest, really, like it broke us. Like we were just like completely fed up with this. We couldn't really continue working like this. Reports also, as the data grew, like reports were taking so long to load. Reports, it was really hard as well for us to like maintain a single definition of a metric, because if I'm working on a report and I decide that, like, let's say DAU, daily active users, means one thing, but there's a backend engineer that at the same time is also trying to look at daily active users, but we're both just writing SQL independently. There is no guarantee that we're going to have the same definition or that we're going to use the same filters, etc. So it became also a lot of like, oh, but I'm seeing this number and like you're seeing that number, and we just couldn't agree on
You both can't be
what
right.
exactly, or like this can't be right. Someone's making a mistake, and that also lowers the trust that you have on the data itself and like on the work that you're doing as a data analyst. So it also like we've realized, okay, like we have way more people joining. We need to have a very easy way to also have role management, because we have people, we don't want everyone to access everything at the same time, right? Like, because we have freelancers, we have people who are working on support, people who are working on other things, and like they shouldn't have to see all of our revenue numbers, for example. So these things just sort of piled up over time.
So where'd you go from here?
So from there, we actually did a much larger investigation. At the start of 2023, we decided, okay, like enough is enough. We need to figure this situation out. And by then, we also had introduced BigQuery as a way to make the reports faster as well, because everything was taking more than 10 minutes to load, and you have your CEO telling you like, why is this so long? Why is this report not loading? And you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You cannot look at more than 3 days of data, because otherwise it will just blow up Metabase. So we had to conduct like a quite larger investigation in this case. We knew what we were looking for. We realized, okay, we don't want to repeat the mistake that we did with chart.io, for example, where this is a company that's going to get bought very easily, or like this is a very small thing and like there's no community around it. Or so we took all of these learnings, and we conducted like a very structured evaluation. And what we did as well is we collected all of these needs that I have been talking about, like all of these pain points, and we made a matrix essentially where we had the pain points, we left comments, and we said, okay, like tool X, they're great for this, they're great for that, but okay, they're not meeting all of our requirements. And this took us months essentially, and it took us a really long time, but at the end we said, okay, we've come down to 3 different tools. We're going to do POCs with each one of them. And we're going to see, and like what we're going to try to do is we're going to replicate the same report in all 3 tools and see which one is easiest. And that was a lot of work as well, because you're essentially learning 3 different systems for this POC. And like you have, obviously you have consultants, you have people who are trying to help you, but at the end of the day, it's about how you feel working with this new tool, and like how easy it was to sort of replicate what we had in the other one. So at the end of the day, it came down to Tableau, Looker, and Noe. And Noe was like a smaller company, and it was a really interesting process, definitely, because we learned a ton as well about like the nuances between different BI tools. But yes, and like after we did the POC, we decided, okay, the best one so far, the one that ticks all of our boxes, is Looker. And so we're gonna go with them.
What was the winning points? What tipped Looker over the
okay, so the winning points are a lot of what I've sort of like talked about a little bit now. So 1, fantastic like role administration system. We can really be very granular as to like how and like what kind of data can you access given the different roles. There's a really good alerting system as well that you can do based on defined metrics, which was also one of like our main needs at this point, because we're just creating new and new reports for alerting, and that is creating a lot of noise. So Looker did have this built-in alerting system that we were very excited about. Secondly, and like thirdly, and I think like the most important thing was that there was an ease that we could use LookML to do a lot of modeling and to do like the final modeling for the data layers. And like this really helped us as well define metrics on a single place. and have this be replicated for everyone. And like the metric definition of daily active user is going to be the same for everyone in the company. Right. So that is something that was really important for us. And I think Looker is a really good tool to satisfy this, essentially.
Nice. So you've got your foundation, you've got a bit of structure, you've got your tool now, you're confident in your decision. Where do you go now? How do you continue to improve? How does the data team evolve from here?
Okay, that's a really interesting question, because we were very starry-eyed and like excited about Looker, and it was something that I think we also underestimated the amount of effort that it was going to be to use Looker to its best potential. And we very quickly realized, after a couple of months of trying to, okay, like we're going to do this migration, but like this is not working, but like, this is not loading properly, like we cannot do this really well. So we really noticed at this point, okay, it's not just about the BI tool. At the end of the day, it's about the data that we have underlying, and like the way that we're modeling our data and the way that we are serving and fetching this data is really important. And so, and this might sound really simple for people who are like very experienced in data engineering or like very experienced data analysts, but for us it was all a learning curve at this point. And it was everything that we realized, okay, like actually we need to take a little step back and figure out, okay, like maybe we need to grow the team, because one single data engineer is not working right now. So we need to hire another more senior data engineer and have a really structured plan about how we're going to do this data modeling and how we're going to build the data pipelines for this to work. Because it doesn't matter how good the BI tool is at the end, if you have garbage data and if it's filled with duplicates or if it's filled with garbage, essentially, then you're just going to serve your business users garbage. So it dawned on us that we had like this ambition to like, okay, we're going to utilize Looker and we're going to do this, and like we're going to start some machine learning projects, but we really didn't have the infrastructure for this. So yes, we had BigQuery, but we didn't have the best way of handling things. So what we did is we went back, we started a hiring process for another senior data engineer. We updated how we worked on the data team, and we decided, okay, we're going to have a data team, and it's going to have multiple data engineers, and we're going to have data analysts. We're going to have all of these resources available so that we can actually take this way more seriously and take our data to the next level, essentially.
The important, I think, the success of the company as well, and scaling different markets, it's going to, that's also a prerequisite. You can have any tool, but it is them foundations. And maybe it was a bit of a reality check that you experienced.
For sure.
So you're looking to hire and strengthen the data team. What else is on the roadmap in a growing startup?
For us right now in the roadmap, there's like really exciting things happening. So we've hired our senior data engineer, but we want to have more resources, right? Like, so we've started hiring for another senior role in the data engineering team. We have started hiring for more data analysts as well. And the idea for us is to really strengthen and structure the data team on the one side, and also have a lot of really like the best tools that we can to finalize this migration into Looker. And this is something that has been really important, because we did a complete overhaul of how we were working in BigQuery, for example. So we introduced Dataform as a tool for like doing a lot of the transformations, and as a tool for even like simple things like deciding on a single column name and like giving it descriptions, like all of these things that make the work for people who come in after a lot easier, or things that we are prioritizing right now. So what we want to do is build a really strong foundation, one for the data pipelines that we want, and second, for like having new hires as well. And another big project that we have in the pipelines right now is that we have begun working with third-party machine learning tools.
Okay.
And this is something that we are really excited about as well, because we want to give the business teams also a good taster of what you can do with machine learning, in the sense of like revenue prediction, these kinds of things. But this is just a start for us. Like, this is something for us to really learn how to use it, to really explore how we can integrate it into our daily work. And then maybe decide, okay, like this is something we want to start doing in-house, or like this is something we want to build upon a lot more. So really, like, the possibilities are endless in this case.
You're just scratching the surface, and you're ready to really showcase what the data can do business-wide in a company that's been super successful. People listening will be wondering who you're talking about. Who is this company? Yeah, tell us more about JustPlay.
Okay, so JustPlay is a loyalty platform that rewards users for playing our games. And we are Berlin based, and we have around 50 people right now working for us. We have really an amazing portfolio of games that you can discover with our platform. And something that's really exciting about it as well is that you can cash out your earnings with us on real time almost. So every 3 hours you have the possibility to cash out. And not only do you can cash out, but you can also donate your earnings. And so in the past, since we've started JustPlay, we have donated over $1 million to charities, and we have over 500,000 daily active users right now. So it really is a really exciting place to be working at, because it's growing so well, and like it has grown so sustainably over the years, and it really has been a fantastic thing to watch it grow for me.
Yeah, and we appreciate you being so transparent and open about the journey so far, and just scratching the surface. And I'm sure some people might be intrigued about getting involved. How do they keep up with you, JustPlay, and what's coming up this year?
Yeah, so what's coming up this year, I for keeping up with us, like, we're getting more active on LinkedIn. Please, like, follow us there. We have a lot of open positions. This is this is like the shameless plug right now, but yeah, we have a lot of open positions, especially for the data team, which is really exciting. Please just, like, I think LinkedIn is the best place to follow us, and download the app as well, and like play some games, get paid.
Yeah, nice. And I'm sure there'll be a few initial data hires who will be reaching out and intrigued, and maybe we could share some knowledge there as well. And yeah, I must say, one of the best offices that I've visited in Berlin. Beautiful spot.
Oh, it is a beautiful. We moved offices this year as well, and like it is a beautiful spot in the middle of Berlin. It is really a fantastic place.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. Well, thank you very, very much, Camila. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing your journey and those insights. But it's all from us today. Ciao for now.
Matt. Bye.